right. We are pleased to have Alexandra Park join us. Alexandra is an Australian actress, writer, and producer. Alexandra played a leading role in all four seasons of the hit show The Royals. She is also known for the Australian series Home and Away and the author of the book Sugar High, The Unexpected Journey of an Inexperienced Type 1 Diabetic. Alexandra's been living with type 1 diabetes for over 10 years now and is partnering with Medtronic Diabetes to help others living with type 1 diabetes learn more about advanced technologies that can help make life with the condition easier. Thank you for joining us, Alexandra.
Thanks so much for having me, Dan.
Yeah. I was wondering if you could just please tell us about your diagnosis story. What signs and symptoms did you experience? Did someone else notice for you? What was that like?
Absolutely. So I was back in Australia at the time. I was 23, running around, working on Home and Away actually at the time, and working as a retail assistant in a clothing shop in Sydney, saving up money to move to LA. And I was living out of home, and I started experiencing symptoms of exhaustion, weight loss, drinking a ton of water, eating so much food but losing weight, and just feeling extremely run down, and like I had bad mood swings and the whole thing. And I went to go and see just the general practitioner on the Northern Beaches where I was living. And I went to see two general practitioners as the symptoms started to increase and become quite concerning. So I was driving down to film in Palm Beach, which is about a 40-minute drive. And I started to get really concerned when my eyesight started to go. I was struggling to read street signs while I was driving. And everybody on the set was sort of saying how concerned they were with how just run down and thin I looked. My skin broke out in very, very bad, painful acne. I was basically just falling apart. But once the symptoms got to the frightening point of, messing with my eyesight, that's when I went to see another GP. And both times I was turned away, being told, you're just run down and you'll be fine. And I literally read out all of those symptoms, which I'm sure you'll all agree if you Google the undiagnosed symptoms of type 1 diabetes, they literally come out in that list of exhaustion, mood swings, weight loss, water, drinking water, all of that, and nobody thought to take a urine or a blood sample. And so that kind of extended my undiagnosed state of extreme discomfort. But then my mother intervened after that, and she basically took me to our family doctor back where she lives. And that doctor knew straight away what was wrong. And she took bloods then and there in the clinic. And the next morning, my mother was woken up at 6 a.m. with missed calls from pathology and from the doctor, and then a ring at the doorbell. And it was my family GP in her dressing gown at my mother's house. I wasn't actually there, but she felt it was my A1C was so high that she wanted to get the news to my mum straight away. And so, yes, it was quite traumatic, but I was very thrilled to know what was wrong with me. And they suggested going to a hospital, but I ended up just going down to the local endocrinologist in the Northern Beaches and getting set up on insulin there.
And how much time had elapsed from the time that your GP told you that you were just worn out to the time that your mother said, okay, we need to, I'm going to intervene?
I think it was about a couple of months that the symptoms sort of began and then progressively got worse. And the mood swings were so bad. I suppose that's something that was really affecting me. I just felt completely out of control in my mental headspace. And then I was experiencing an infection as well. And then, once my mum heard all of these, I think the alarm bells went on. And I suppose after a month of going and seeing these GPs. So it was a couple of months of just kind of pushing through and hoping for the best.
So when you were diagnosed, what kind of treatment did you receive upon diagnosis? And were you at that time and your family, were you educated about CGMs and insulin pumps?
No, absolutely not. So I knew nothing about type 1 diabetes. I knew the very general sort of, nothingness about diabetes. I about type 1 diabetes specifically. I went down, I was very much in denial from the diagnosis for a good 5 years. I was just very much in denial. So they set me up on insulin shots. So I was taking multiple injections daily. And I remember specifically being in the doctor the day I was diagnosed, and the diabetes educator brought out a dummy that had pumps and CGMs and things all over it. And I remember being absolutely petrified of all of it and wanting nothing to do with it. And just basically shutting it down immediately. From then, before I moved to LA, so I moved to LA 3 months after I was diagnosed, and much to my mother's fear, and yes, just well, yes, there wasn't much she could do, but basically, yes, my mother, Dexcom had started a new their very first continuous glucose monitor, and I tried it on for 1 day, and it was so uncomfortable. I didn't like it. It wasn't accurate. I took it off and didn't even think about a CGM or an insulin pump for another 5 or 6 years.
So let's talk about that, because you had two just major life events happen in a really short period of time. You were diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, and then you landed a lead role in the Royals.
Yeah.
How soon after your type 1 diagnosis were you cast in the Royals? And can you just describe what it was like to juggle and adjust to these two just massive life events?
Yeah, sure. It was really, it was quite tight. So, like I said, I was diagnosed in June of 2013, and then I moved to LA 3 months after that. So I'd had a few months to sort of try and organize my life with type 1 diabetes. Basically, packed up a big bag of insulin and headed over to LA. And then 2 weeks after I was in LA, I was cast in the Royals and headed to London about a week after that to shoot the pilot.
Mhm. And
And
so, yeah, I mean, how did that affect your diabetes control? How did that affect your just everything?
yeah, honestly, it was not good. It was not good in the sense that I was barely hanging on with my diabetes management. I sort of fell into a very dangerous place with that diagnosis. I wanted to do anything I could to not associate myself, to not be associated with diabetes, to just sort of crack on with it, do the very best I could, but to not let it get in the way of my dreams, of my ambitions, of my goals, of my plans. They were very much set in stone from a very young age. And this diagnosis came at an incredibly inconvenient time for me, and I just didn't want anything to do with it. I didn't want to be sick. I didn't want to have high blood sugar. I didn't want to feel altered in my ability to do what I needed to do in order to achieve my goals. So I with that denial, I'm on the go. I'm in different countries. I'm in LA, then I'm in London. This is the first big break in a television show that I've ever had, and I'm the youngest person. I know nothing about London, and I've decided that I know better than everyone about diabetes. I've decided that while the doctors are telling me, that I need to ease up on my insulin shots because my A1C is so low that I'm experiencing, terrible hypoglycemic attacks constantly. That's what was happening because basically my mind frame was, right, I have this. I will deal with it myself. I'm not going to become a sick person because of this. I'm not going to have high blood sugar. So immediately I wanted to control it. I was on this pursuit for perfection, and I was giving myself insulin far too frequently and in far too large doses. In order to keep my levels at a very at a next to non-diabetic level, and so I was experiencing low blood sugar very constantly. but I was basically just getting up and cracking on with it. And I think the adrenaline was running extremely high with all the exciting things that were going on in my life, that I just kept going and just kept, I don't know, pushing through. The film crew would have to stop pretty often because I would be going low and things like that. But yeah, I was just sort of on a mouse on a wheel, just running, go, go, go.
And was there an endocrinologist or a CD, CES on the set who could who with whom you could speak, who could say to you, you're taking too much insulin, you're having way too many hypos?
Yes. Well, no, we had a medic on set, and the production set me up with an endocrinologist in London who I went to see. And again, I was in a pretty, I believe, unique place with this whole thing, in that I went to see, these were the top endocrinologists in London, and I was almost, excited by what he was saying. He said, now your A1C is so low, it's almost at a non-diabetic level. And to me, that information was excellent. That's what I need, because I don't want to be diabetic. I don't want to deal with that. I want to start that, so instead of taking that information saying, right, okay, well, maybe if I let my A1C go up a little bit, I wouldn't be experiencing as many hypos. I took that part of the information, threw it out the window. And I just thought, great, I'm doing well. I'm keeping that A1C low. And I continued, down that path of frequent hypoglycemia for a really long time.
So you described in a previous interview, you described the first years of living with diabetes as being mentally exhausting and isolating. And I was wondering if you could just elaborate on what you meant by isolating, considering that you're on a set around people all the time. What did you mean by that?
Yeah, isolating in the sense that something that became incredibly apparent to me when I was diagnosed was that regardless of the amount of support and love that was around me, in terms of my friends that I made very quickly on that set, my family who were constantly in contact from Australia, etc., I craved I craved somebody else who knew what it was like to go through what I was going through. And I didn't know anyone who had type 1. I didn't know anyone at all in Australia, in London, in LA, anywhere. And the doctors that I spoke to were not diabetic. So for some reason, that made it really difficult for me to compute what they were saying. I really desperately craved advice, or, just conversation with somebody who had experienced what I was experiencing, who knew what it was like to be constantly on this roller coaster of up and down, and feeling overwhelmed, and being up all night, and pricking my finger 1,000 times a day. And it was isolating in the sense that I didn't really want to talk to anyone, or felt like I could talk to anyone who didn't know what it was like. Because it was, I'd sit down and I'd explain it to people, but unless you're living with this condition, I think it really is difficult for people to understand just how complicated it is to manage and live with this condition. And that was extremely isolating.
So what made you decide to turn your life around with diabetes? Turn your life with diabetes around. How did you move past what you called the denial stage?
Absolutely. Unfortunately, what got me out of that denial stage was hitting a form of rock bottom. So my hypoglycemic attacks got so bad that they started to frighten me, and frighten others around me. Gosh, I haven't talked about this in a while, so forgive me. It was tough, but we persevere. Yes, I hit rock bottom. I had almost passed out many times, but it was after about 5 years of managing the way that I had been, or not managing the way that I had been, that I was here in LA with my now husband and my mother, who was over visiting, and I started doing really kind of spooky things, in the sense that when I was with my mother or my husband or someone close, they started keeping an eye on me and sort of watching the shots I would give myself, because it became a sort of a I was ashamed of it because part of me knew that I probably was giving these shots, and I didn't really need them, but I was so desperate to keep it low that I started doing things like going into the next room and giving myself a shot. If I saw a number that I didn't like, that was too high for me, I would go into the next room, and then my husband might be like, well, if I started going low, what happened? Like, how much have you given yourself? And I'd lose track of how much I'd given myself, and I was lying about it. And then one night, yes, we were back here, and I'd given myself insulin throughout the night. We were at a performance at a show, and I remember checking, my blood sugar and seeing that it was, at a number now that I think about, that's not a dangerous number. That's a number that's fine. But to me, it immediately set off alarm bells, and I'd give myself some, and if it's not moving fast enough, I'd give myself more. And eventually that night, it all crashed. I had a massive crash and passed out in front of my mum and my husband, who, had to figure out a way to help me and deal with this situation. And that really terrified me. So they had to get out the emergency glycogen pen, and it was a whole charade. And basically, I just realized that if I was going to continue managing my diabetes the way that I had been, it was going to eventually stop me from being able to do what I want to do. If I want to be an actor, if I want to be a producer, if I want to keep going down this path that I have been on since I was a very young girl, I needed to get myself together. I needed to figure it out, because, it took a long time, and it's a vulnerable thing for me to admit that it took me that long, but I realized that, I needed to get out of my own way, and to realize that, perfection is an illusion, and that if I don't start managing this in a way that's going to be less interrupting of my lifestyle, and there's no way I was going to be able to be an actor and continue following my dreams and doing all the things that I wanted to do. And so it was in that moment that I realized I needed to find a doctor that I could listen to, and start figuring out a way to not allow this to be such a huge inconvenience and danger to my life.
So, how is living with type 1 diabetes? How has that impacted your acting instincts and the choices you make with your characters?
I don't think in terms of the choices that I make as an actor, I wouldn't say that my diabetes has had any impact on that at all. I think the two are very separate things. If in one way that it's impacted me positively, would be that I believe my type 1 diabetes and the journey that I've gone through has made me stronger, has made me a lot stronger as a human being, and therefore as an actor, as a producer, as a hustler, as a fighter. You have to be all of these things to be in the industry that I'm in. And diabetes has, it's been a journey, but it's definitely made me stronger. It's made me realize that while it is an incredibly challenging condition to live with, that it's something that I have been able to overcome with help from Medtronics, for one. This has been a huge help to me in the most recent sense of it, but that there are doctors, there are people that can help me manage this thing so that I can keep fighting. I can be strong. I can get through it. If I can get through something like that, then that just gives more fuel to my fire. And I think in that sense, it has made me stronger. But in terms of, if it affects my choices as an actor, no, they're very separate things. Yeah.
So now you're a Medtronic pump user. I was wondering maybe if we could just kind of go back to the beginning again, and if you can recollect what some of your apprehensions at the time, what they were about diabetes technology.
Absolutely. In the beginning, it was all so much as it was. So you're a normal 23-year-old girl who's racing around town, going to parties, having a good time, living your life. And all of a sudden you're being told, you need to have, injections and needles and all this stuff, and you need to check the I was terrible at math. Let me just be very clear about that. I did my maths class in the janitor's closet with 3 other numerically challenged students, and that's just never been my skill. So suddenly I'm having to learn about numbers and all of this stuff, and it is so much all at once on that initial diagnosis, that the last thing I wanted, or could even think about, was the way I saw it, a device that I'm attached to. It's something, and this is my mind frame back then. I don't want to be attached to something. I don't want another reminder of my condition. I don't want to see it. I don't want to think about it. It's too complicated. It's too much. It's the attachment. It's all of that. It's also that back then, like I said, I did try another brand of a CGM, and that it didn't work very well. It wasn't accurate. It made things more confusing to me, and it was too much. And so I just wanted the bare minimum. Give me the medicine. I can figure out how to do that with an injection, with an insulin pen. That's as far as I can go.
Yeah.
So that's where I was then.
So how did the transition take place? How did you and your healthcare team, how did you decide that pumping insulin and more specifically, the MiniMed 780G, how did you all decide that, this was the right solution for your diabetes self-management?
Honestly, I was waiting, because my husband and my mother and, the other amazing people in my life are constantly and have been constantly checking up on this technology over the years, and keeping tabs on what's available, what's being developed. And for me, it was being introduced to the MiniMed 780G, and learning just all of these incredible features that this device has, and being in a place mentally, which I wish I could have, been convinced to be in many years ago, but being in that place finally where I was open to hearing what was out there on offer and how this could help me. And also getting to the point where my life's become even more busy. I'm producing and writing my own TV show right now, which we're in the middle of selling. We're on the 2nd season. I'm working all over the country, moving around, doing all these things. And while I had got to a place with injections and manual glucose monitors, it was fine, it was good, but you still have moments, particularly as a woman with type 1 diabetes, with hormonal fluctuations. There are still times throughout the month, particularly, that are just so challenging. And I was just craving something that would help me more, would give me the support that I wasn't currently receiving from, the methods that I was using. And so speaking to my doctor, Dr. Ann Peters, who's just such a dear friend, an incredible doctor, and she really was the one that got through to me after the first 5 years of everything I was going through. The first doctor who really was, able to get through to me and inform me of other ways of managing this, and helping me understand that it's okay to put my hand up and ask for help. And that's what I did with Medtronics. I learned about this device, and the fact that it has these meal detection technology, whereby instead of me having to give myself injections all day, every day, the thought that this device would take out an enormous amount of those daily decisions that I have to make on injections was just like, what? I'd never heard of a device doing that before.
Yeah.
And I wanted that. I wanted to just be in a place where I could go about my busy life, and just, if we could remove, a huge chunk of the time that I had to dedicate or move away from what I was doing to deal with my diabetes, then that's something that I wanted to try. And so that's really where it came from, that this device, this MiniMed 780G from Medtronics, offered this support that I'd never been offered before. And I thought that was worth trying, and I am so glad that I did.
So If you don't mind me asking, at your roughest point in the beginning, how many, when you were, doing MDIs, how many injections were you giving yourself each day, you think?
Oh gosh. I mean, obviously there's the long acting, which is once a day. There's 3 times for each meal. And then there's correctional insulin shots. So I would say I was injecting 8 or 9 times a day.
Wow. Okay. Wow.
And not to mention the checking of the blood sugars. So I had my manual glucose monitor, and my fingers for years were just butchered, like to the point where they hurt when they were wet, where they just, because I was just checking. And the thing about the CGM, the Guardian Force sensor that comes with the Medtronic Mini Med 780G, is that they're working together. So this CGM is telling the pump what to do. And it's so accurate that I actually feel safe, that I can rely on this thing in a way that I don't have to just check my previous CGM that was all over the place with accuracy. And then I've got to check with the finger prick and do this. And I don't know which way it's moving. It gives me so much information that I never had before.
So you've said that wearing the MiniMed 780G system is like having another brain.
That's right.
How is being a pump user improved your sleep quality, exercise, food intake, relationship with food? How is it giving you this other brain, as you call it?
Yes, the other brain, I do like to call it that, because it really is. It's like another brain. It's incredible in terms of the sleep. You brought up sleep. Sleep is something that is extremely important, as we can all agree, diabetic or not. Sleep, when you're living with type 1 diabetes, it's challenging. It's challenging in the sense that, as blood sugars, are during your day, they're moving up and down throughout the night. And a lot of the time, most of the time, before I transitioned to this 780G mini med, I was waking up with high blood sugar, because I'd be getting alerts throughout the night from my previous CGM that I was using, and I'm half asleep and I'm having to get up and treat a low. And then and then from that, I've had too much sugar and it's going high. And can you imagine waking up every morning, every single morning, waking up and checking your blood sugar, and it's saying you're way off the charts. Your blood sugars are so high. Can you imagine that every single morning? That was how it was for me every single morning, pretty much. And you get that first thing in the morning, that kind of slap in the face of just an immediate, you've failed. Your day is more challenging than everyone else's, because you need to get those bloods back down, and then you need to make sure they don't keep going down. It's just immediately sets you off on the wrong foot in terms of your mental health, in terms of your physical health. And what this pump does is, if I've had, if I've had a little bit too much to eat or something, which, God forbid, I have a little bit of a bite of a cake or something, and then it ruins my whole night of sleep. What this system does is it allows me to have a couple of bites of the cake, and then it's going to see what happens to my bloods. And throughout the night, it's not going to drop me low so I wake up having a hypo. It does it in this methodical way where it just brings me back to a safe range. And I can say with true transparency and honesty, every single morning that I have woken up since I have been on this device with Medtronic, my blood sugars have been perfect every single morning. And that has changed my life like I can't even tell you. Because just imagine, you wake up every morning and I look at my device and it says, you're good. You're good. You're good to go about your day. And it's just, to me, that's been like something I never imagined would be possible.
So it sounds like it's just had amazing mental and emotional benefits for you, it sounds like.
Incredible. And
Yeah.
my husband said to me, and this was after about a month of being on the device. I've been on it for about 3 or 4 months now. And he said to me, because obviously, the partners of those with type 1 are very much involved in the management as well. And he said to me quite early on that, the amount of conversations that we have about my diabetes have been reduced by 95%. Like, we just don't even really talk about it as much, at all, because it's just being handled. And I just can't believe that I went through all those years living the way that I was. But it's really changed my life.
So, after releasing your memoir, Sugar High: The Unexpected Journey of an Inexperienced Type One Diabetic, and I believe it was 2021, right?
Yes.
Did you after you published that book, did you make any new connections with people living with type 1 diabetes? And did it bring you closer to the diabetes community and inspire further advocacy on your part?
Absolutely. Yeah, it did. It's been incredible, and it continues to do that for me. So, getting the book out there has allowed me to allowed me contact with fellow type ones who reach out via social media, or type ones that I meet at conventions for TV that I'm doing, or any kind of festival travel, international travel. When we're there doing press for our TV show, everyone is doing great. We're there, and I have so many beautiful people come up to me and talk to me about the fact that they read my book and it made them feel less alone. And we've kept in contact. I've read stories, and I think every time a type 1 diabetic, whether it's me who's been living with it for 10 years or someone that's just been diagnosed, that connection with others going through the same thing, regardless of how long it is, or with whom it is with, it helps you. It makes you stronger. It makes you feel less alone. So that's been massive since reading the book. It's allowed me to connect with so many others because of my story. Sharing my story has sort of, I've found it's made others feel encouraged to share their stories. In terms of advocacy, it's led me to organizations like Type One International, where my husband and I have been working closely with the amazing people over there who are fighting to make insulin affordable for Americans everywhere, and internationally as well, and with Life for a Child as well. So that's another organization that's very dear to my heart, who I give 10% of my book earnings to that organization. So it's been incredible to just learn about what all these organizations are doing, and to help out in any way that I can, and just sort of grow my knowledge on the topic as much as possible.
So now that you're on a mini med pump, I mean, what are your thoughts about maybe writing another book about this new part of your journey with diabetes?
Listen, I don't know, honestly, it's given me so much more freedom now that maybe I will write another book. I don't know. I feel like maybe my book, I might be just a one-hit wonder with my book writing moment, but you never know. I mean, we're pretty busy at the moment with the third season of Everyone's Doing Great, and all of that. And I'm just so pleased to have this pump now, because for so many reasons, I'm sleeping. I'm not interrupted. I'm able to get what I need done. And the team at Medtronics have been so incredible. The support that they offer with the setup, and then continuing into my life with this pump. They've been incredible, and just helped me every step of the way. And I've got my best friend in Sydney. She's just started on the pump as well. So you never know. There might be a sequel to the book. I might get there. But at the moment, I'm honoured to be able to be an ambassador for Medtronics, and to push this incredible device as much as I can. And my dream would be that everybody with type 1 is able to have this support that I do. It breaks my heart that there are so many people out there who aren't able to use it. But that would be my dream, is that everyone can have this incredible device, because it's amazing, and it just makes diabetes a thing in the corner as opposed to a thing right in front of your face.
What about if you made Sugar High into a movie? Would you play the part of Alexandra Park, or would you hire Kate Blanchett or Margot Robbie or Nicole Kidman or?
Actually, yes, that's the beautiful thing about Sugar High, is that I think it's quite an exciting story, if I do say so myself. And there have been talk about that. I've had a couple of filmmakers reach out about where I'm at with all of that, and I've said sort of thank you, but I'm going to hold on to it for the moment. And I think yeah, well, being a filmmaker myself, alongside my husband, it's there, and it's a pretty strong IP, and we've got it there, and it's absolutely something that I think would make it pretty cool kind of movie or TV show. I would not play myself. No, I would go someone else.
And Kate Blanchett is Australian, right? She's not British.
And available, I hear. No, yeah, Kate Blanchett is Australian. And yes, it may be in another life she would play me in this book.
So what words of inspiration do you have for people living with type 1 diabetes, especially those who maybe want to pursue an acting career, or maybe they want to be an athlete, or maybe they want to just do anything? I mean, what's your advice for pursuing your dream while living with diabetes?
My advice would be, for anyone living with type 1 diabetes who has a big dream, it doesn't have to be any different than it would be if you didn't have type 1 diabetes. And I think that that's the kind of mind frame that you have to have. You have to have the mind frame that, yes, so you've been diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. Yes, that is unfortunate. It's not great, but it could be a lot worse. You could have been diagnosed with something that literally stops you from being an athlete, from being an actor, from being a director, from being anything you want to be. Diabetes is challenging, but what I've learned in my journey with it so far is that you put your hand up, you ask for help, you get on devices like the MiniMed 780G with Medtronic, and you just crack on. You don't give up. You use it as fuel to your fire. That's what it can do. That's what it's done for me, is that it's made me stronger. And yes, it's hard work. And yes, all of your days are not going to be a walk in the park, but that's life. That's what I've learned. That is life. And you have everything that you need to do whatever you want to do. And so it's your choice. Make the choice and stick to it, and use this condition as something that makes you stronger, because that's what I've done, and it works. And it could always be worse. It could be a hell of a lot worse. And there is so much incredible support out there that is just getting better and better, is what I've learned from this insulin pump with Medtronics. It's just incredible how far the technology has come, and there's really no excuse. You've got everything you need. Like, don't give up, just do it. Get it done. Do it. That's my advice.
Alexandra, thank you so much for taking the time to meet with us. It was very nice meeting you, and we really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I really appreciate it, Dan. It's lovely to chat.
All right, be well.